Imagine a world without kings, where justice wasn't handed down from on high, but decided by the community itself. Welcome to the realm of Brehon Law, the Celtic system that kept order for centuries without a centralized monarchy. This wasn't some chaotic free-for-all. It was a sophisticated legal framework that valued fairness, accountability, and the strength of kinship bonds. At the heart of Brehon Law were the Brehons themselves, professional judges who dedicated their lives to memorizing and interpreting an intricate web of legal precedents. These weren't dusty academics, but respected members of society who often inherited their role, passing down knowledge through generations. Imagine a judge whose great-grandfather had settled disputes about cattle raids, and whose own rulings might be remembered centuries later. When conflicts arose between neighbors, maybe a boundary dispute or an accusation of slander, they didn't march off to a cold courtroom. Instead, the community called upon a Brehon to mediate. These judges didn't have the power to throw someone in a dungeon. No. Their role was to find a solution that restored harmony, not to dole out punishment. This is where Brehon Law gets truly fascinating. The cornerstone of their system was something called honor price. Every person in Celtic society, from the lowliest farmer to the mightiest chieftain, had a set value based on their status and reputation. This was about putting a price tag on human life. It was a way to quantify the impact of wrongdoing and determine fair compensation. Let's say a nobleman insulted a farmer. The Brehon would consult the intricate honor price system and determine how much that slight was worth. The nobleman might have to pay a hefty fine in silver, or even host a lavish feast for the farmer and his clan. If roles were reversed, and the farmer insulted the noble, the compensation would be much less, but it still acknowledged the harm done. This might sound cold or transactional to our modern ears, but it created a system of accountability deeply rooted in the fabric of the community. Everyone knew their worth, and everyone knew the consequences of their actions. It was not about locking someone away. It was about making things right and preserving the delicate social balance. The genius of Brehon Law lay in its flexibility. While there were established precedents, Brehons had the power to interpret and adapt rulings to fit unique situations. A dispute over grazing rights might be settled differently in a lush valley than on a windswept island. This allowed the law to evolve alongside the community it served. But don't think for a moment that this system was soft on serious crimes. While most disputes ended in compensation, Brehon Law had provisions for exile or even death in extreme cases. The key difference was that these harsher punishments were a last resort, not the default. One of the most remarkable aspects of Brehon Law was its endurance. This system thrived for centuries, long after many of Ireland's neighbors had adopted more centralized forms of governance. Why? Because it worked. It fostered a society where people trusted in the law itself, not in the whims of a distant ruler. This longevity tells us volumes about Celtic values. They prized fairness over rigid authority, community bonds over individual power. The Brehon system recognized that true justice isn't about punishment, but about restoring balance and maintaining the social fabric that held their world together. Imagine how different our modern legal system might look if it drew inspiration from Brehon Law. What if, instead of focusing on punitive measures, we prioritized making things right between wronged parties? What if our courts were less about cold authority and more about community healing? The legacy of Brehon Law challenges us to rethink our assumptions about justice and governance. It shows us that a society can maintain order and resolve conflicts without relying on a centralized power structure. In a world increasingly skeptical of traditional authority, perhaps there are lessons we can learn from this ancient Celtic wisdom. As we ponder these questions, it's worth noting how Brehon Law handled some unusual cases. Take, for example, disputes over bee swarms, a valuable commodity in medieval Ireland. The law had specific provisions for determining ownership if a swarm left one person's land and settled on another's. It's this level of detail and practical application that made Brehon Law so effective in daily life. The training of Brehons was equally fascinating. Aspiring judges underwent years of rigorous education, memorizing vast tracts of legal precedent and learning the art of interpretation. This wasn't just about rote learning. Brehons were expected to be skilled orators and diplomats, capable of explaining their rulings in a way that satisfied all parties. It's important to understand that Brehon Law wasn't a utopian system. It had its flaws and biases, particularly in how it treated women and the lower classes. However, even with these shortcomings, it was remarkably progressive for its time. Women, for instance, had more legal rights under Brehon Law than in many contemporary European systems. The concept of honor price deserves a closer look. Imagine a sliding scale where your actions carried different weights depending on your social status. A king's honor price might be measured in hundreds of cattle, while a farmer's might be a fraction of that. This system created a form of social pressure. The higher your status, the more you had to lose by acting dishonorably. But here's the crucial point. Brehon Law operated without kings at the top. There was no single, all-powerful ruler dictating justice. Instead, it was a distributed system where local chieftains, clan leaders, and respected Brehons all played a role in maintaining order. This decentralized approach meant that no one person or group could become too powerful. As we wrap up our journey through the world of Brehon Law, it's worth asking ourselves, what can we learn from this ancient system? In a world grappling with issues of justice, equality, and governance, perhaps there's wisdom to be found in how the Celts approached these challenges centuries ago. So, let me pose this question to you. Would you rather face a Brehon than a modern court? Think about the emphasis on restoration over punishment, on community healing over individual retribution. It's a fascinating thought experiment that challenges our assumptions about justice and social order. If you're intrigued by these glimpses into ancient minds and alternative ways of structuring society, make sure to subscribe to the Druid's Vault. We'll continue to explore the hidden wisdom of the past and how it might inform our present and future. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm always eager to hear your perspectives on these journeys through history.